Thank you very much for being here. See, I like to tell people, don't let see finish to rob you of opportunities. There are people who are here who you can. There's so much resource here. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So much human resource. Let's take advantage of that. And please, this service is going to be recorded and is going to be placed online on our YouTube. Kindly engage our YouTube. I go to our YouTube and I'll be seeing three reviews. It's not. What's on that platform is heavy. Please, let's go there and engage. Welcome, ma. It's
So much,
a
sir. Thank you.
pleasure to have you, an absolute honor to have you here. What we are going to be talking about is something that a lot of us we didn't used to take seriously, and a lot of us still don't take seriously. So, by way of introduction, I just want you to speak to your paper, and then we can begin to explore the questions after.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much. But before I start, I want us to do some act of gratitude. I have some gratitude cards here I would like us to share around. At least 3 things you are grateful to God for concerning your work. Yes, 1 each. At the back, at least 3 things you are grateful to God for concerning your career, your work. So let's quickly do that. Let's start from a place of gratitude. Let's be grateful to God. He has given us the job we are doing, the career we are doing, the businesses we are doing. At least 3 things you are grateful to God for. Can I start as they are writing? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let's look at who is a toxic personality. Who has toxic personality? Is someone that display an attitude or behavior that regularly hurt people and negatively impacts the life of people around them. They are often very controlling and manipulative. Those are toxic people. They will control you and they are master manipulators. But before we say somebody is a toxic person or a toxic boss or an employee, it starts from somewhere. Like I say, I'm a child psychologist, so I have to start from where the genesis of. The next slide, please. Thank you. Let's look at this little child here. She is probably experiencing neglect, emotional neglect or psychological neglect or trauma. Maybe he's experiencing trauma. A child that his parents are either not consistent with their parenting. They are sometimes there and sometimes not available for him. So this is a child that is experiencing neglect. There is emotional distance from between him and his parent. Next slide, please. And let's look at another mother and child. Probably this particular child is overindulged. Everything the child wants, the parents provide. Everything. They don't know how to say, oh, wait, or patience. Or probably the child is being underindulged. They will say, when the child probably wants to cry, will say, stop crying, boys don't cry. Stop showing emotions. Or maybe the boy is growing up in a conditional way. It is only when you get a good grade, I'm going to show love to you. You're going to get your bicycle if you get first in class. Or you're going to get something if you pass well in this competition. A child growing up in a conditional way. Or probably the parent, the mother is a narcissist, a psychopath or a sociopath. And they are mirroring, she's mirroring that behavior, that personality into this child's life. So unknowingly to the child, if there is any early intervention, the child might probably go up to become toxic. Next slide, please. So look at this child. In psychology, we have something we call attachment style. This is the way we have psychologically train our children. It is not about physical training. It is not about academics training. It is not about spiritual training. It is about psychologically training your children. And in the attachment style, there is secured one, which is when your child will fully develop his or her own sense of self, a self-esteem, a self-image. But when the child is insecure in the upbringing, it's either three things: emotionally confused. This is where you are emotionally abandon your children. You are sometimes there, you are sometimes not there. You are not consistent in your psychological parenting of your children. So this child is probably confused emotionally. He doesn't know what is wrong with his parent. Sometimes they will be there for him, and sometimes they are not there for him. Next slide, please. The little girl is emotionally distant, experiencing what we call dismissive avoidant attachment. Remember I said that attachment style is how you have psychologically trained your children. So these ones, their parents have probably neglected her psychologically. They are uninvolved. They are not there for her psychologically and emotionally. They can provide every other thing for her. You can go to church every Sunday. You can give her academic good schools. But when it's supposed to be, and when it's time for the emotional well-being and psychological well-being of this child, the parents are far apart from this child. Next slide, please. Then this is another child which is emotionally disorganized. It's a combination of the confusion and the distant child. So when a child is emotionally disorganized, the parents unknowingly, honestly, let's be truthful, unintentionally and unknowingly parented this child in a disorganized way. Verbal abuse, frightening, threatening, yelling at your child. Maybe you yell and you don't come back to plead or to say sorry, this is what you do and all that. So this child might probably grow up in a disorganized way emotionally. Next slide, please. And if there is no early intervention, this child might probably grow up. There is a trend of the child growing up from being a baby to the adult, to become an adult. Is not okay. Next slide, please. So when the child now become an adult, he start having because without any intervention, the child can become an adult with a toxic personality. And who has a toxic personality? Somebody that is very antagonistic, very manipulative, very controlling. He has issues with interpersonal relationship. Remember that the child was growing up in a disorganized, insecure attachment style. So it becomes toxic. It doesn't even comprehend. I can't understand how you are feeling. They don't understand. Toxic people, sometimes they are mean, but they don't know that they are hurting you. They can't understand because the emotional distance, the emotional confusion, the emotional disorganization they've experienced from childhood, they lack empathy. That's just the summary of everything. They lack empathy. So they can't understand what you are feeling. These are the people that when your closing time is between 9 to 5, they will tell you to work till 9 or work till 10. If you give an excuse, they don't even see reason for your excuse. So you have to do what they want as long as they get whatever they want. Next slide, please. So in this toxic personality, we call something in psychology antisocial. This word is not somebody that is not social. It is not the word. In psychology, it means somebody that cannot conform with the normal social norm. So antisocial personality are the ones that break rules and regulation. They lack respect for people's needs. They lack respect for people's needs and feelings. They lack empathy. They can't understand how you are feeling. They can't even comprehend. If you give some excuses or you're feeling, they don't see any reason for you. And they are very, very antagonistic and very confronting. They are the one that will argue with you in the office. They are very, very conniving. They can connive with you in ensuring that you get sacked in the office or you get queried in the office. So I will explain more a bit about this antisocial because you will see them in another trend. Next slide, please. The another one is this person suffers from borderline personality disorder. This particular person, borderline people are not that bad because they have these ebbs and flows of emotions. Sometimes when they are in their lows, they can act well. You are the best person on earth. But tomorrow, you can be the worst person they've ever met. So those are because they have unstable upbringing. Their ebbs and flow. The parents are inconsistent when they are bringing them up psychologically. So they have this impulsive nature. They can act without thinking about the consequences of what they've done to you. They are the one that will act later. They will start regretting. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I'm so sorry. They can have a little empathy. And the one when they are in their borderline state, oh God, they can gossip about you. They are the one you see gossiping about you, or make sure that probably ensuring that they cause fight between two staffs and all that. They are in borderline state. It's a mental health condition that if care is not taken, those are the people they got sacked easily because they're having this fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, and because they've experienced it in a disorganized way during their childhood. Don't let us forget that everything about these toxic people are the way they were psychologically trained when they were a childhood. Next slide, please. Then let's talk about the major part. The most common one is the narcissism. A narcissist is someone that is very entitled, very manipulative, very controlling. They lack empathy also. They don't empathize with people. They don't understand your feelings. They can step on your toes. As long as they get what they want, professional gain, personal gain, they can step on people's toes. Narcissists are the ones that they gaslight. They are deceitful. Gaslighting means that they can deny your reality. Sometimes you start questioning your sanity. They are the ones that can, probably you are my colleague in the office and we were told to do something and gave me an information and I did it the way we are supposed to do, and we get to the superior. They will deny you that you never answer. Okay, Mr. Solomon said, no, I didn't discuss anything. You would deny me. I will start saying, but you said, no, I didn't tell you anything. They would deny you and start questioning your own sanity, your own reality that, seriously, what's going on? Those are narcissists. They can gaslight and very deceitful. And the problem about those people, all these toxic personalities, they have a core deficit in self-esteem. That's what, the problem is not about you. It is them. So one of the tips I'll give us is not to take things too personal when you meet a toxic colleague. Don't take things too personal. The issue is not about you at all. It is about their core deficit in self-esteem. The issue is about them not growing up in a stable condition. So you have to come from a place of empathy sometimes when you're acting with them. So let's now look at various, next slide please, various types of narcissists, because narcissists are not that grandiose. They're the ones that are very superficial. They lack depth. They are very superficial. They are this arrogant attitude, grandiose, but not all of them are of grandiose in nature. There is one that you can, this one is hardly to detect, a vulnerable narcissist. They are the one that will seek your sympathy just to get what you want. They act like a victim a lot. They are pretending. They are the one that, if you see some people that, okay, go and work somewhere, you give them CV, go and submit, I can't work under anybody. This job beneath me. They humble brag. These are vulnerable narcissists. They will humble brag. They will tell you that some work beneath them. They can't say yes sir to people, and they are very vulnerable, very conniving, and they are good in gaslighting. You will not notice. They are very, very cunning. So you will hardly spot them because they seek sympathy a lot. But the thing is that they lack empathy. Don't let us, at the back of our mind, they don't have empathy. They don't have empathy. They don't understand people's feelings. So they act the way they like. So next slide, please. So we have a covert narcissist. These ones are master emotional manipulators. They can manipulate you emotionally as long as they get what they want. And when they get what they want, they can show little compassion and kindness to you and say thank you. But next day they will tell you, they will act arrogant to you. But when they want to get what they want, I have one. When Mentor Emmanuel called me about this topic, I was like, these are all my experience while I was in my last place of work. I worked with a toxic superior, toxic colleague, and toxic subordinate. All of them are malignant. They have different traits of narcissism in them. And it was overwhelming. Let's continue. So with another type is, next slide please, the grandiose one. These are the ones that like to show up. They show up, they tell you they are better than anybody else in the office. They are the one that you need to admire them. They like validation and admiration. If you don't say you look good today, you are not in their good book. You won't be their friends. So they like to show up. They are the one you see on social media. They need to know the number of likes they have. They want to, they will put, okay, it's time, please like. Do I look good today? If you tell them this time you wore it last week, you will be in trouble. Because they don't want to believe that they repeat things. They were always this arrogant and grandiose in nature. And they don't forget that they gaslight, they lack empathy as well. Next one. This is the malignant narcissist. This is the psychopath, the antisocial person, a psychopath and the sociopath. You see them as bosses. They are the one, they lack feeling, they lack understanding. A malignant boss are the one that they don't have conscience. And it is not their fault. Don't let us forget that they grew up in a disorganized emotional manner. So they don't have conscience. They can step on your toes to get what you want, what they want. They are the one they are the one that embarrass you in front of every other staff. Your boss that were embarrassing, and the next minute they say, "Oh, Mr. Solomon, let's go out for lunch," as if nothing happened in the morning. They are a very cunning, a psychopath, and they are the one that will say, they take credit for everything you've done. When you work with a malignant person, and maybe you've submitted the work and they say thank you, in the management meeting they are there, they will present the work as if they are the one that did everything. They will take credit for all your work and place it as if you are the one that did everything, and they can micromanage you. They micromanage you. They are very erratic, they are unstable. They can tell you, let's go for lunch. The next day they can yell at you in front of everybody. Those are malignant bosses, and their brother is a sociopath. Sociopath has a little bit of conscience. They know that they are lying, they know that they are hurting you, but they do it anyway. They still, let me do it. All of them, they don't have compassion, they lack empathy. Then how do you know that you are working, next slide, how do you know that you are working with a malignant boss? Like I said, they are very erratic. They are the one that will yell at you in front of every other person. They are the one that they don't like taking responsibility, and they don't like knowing that they like this divide and rule strategy. And they are always the one that have spy. They have always have spy in the office that will report everything that happens in the office to the boss. Those are malignant, a psychopath or the sociopath. Next slide, please. Then this is what happens to me. I have a superior that has, this is me right here. I look beautiful, right? Okay. I have a malignant boss that always make me feel what we call imposter syndrome. If you surround yourself with a narcissist, you start having this feeling of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. I like when Pastor was saying that some people don't want to go out to preach, or you start having this feeling that I sinned yesterday. What God do I have to go and preach to Mr. Solomon? Because that imposter syndrome make you feel you are not good enough to preach the gospel. Imposter syndrome will make me feel that I'm not good at my job. I feel incompetent. During those years, I feel so incompetent. I feel I'm not good enough. I start doubting my qualification. I start feeling that, probably I didn't deserve this work. That's imposter syndrome. Makes me, and the thing is that it's a perception. It's inside of us. That's not the reality. It is not true. Imposter syndrome will make you feel you are not good. You don't worth it to go and preach the gospel. You don't worth it to do this work. And I start running away. Self-doubt becomes my psychological language. I start doubting myself. I start second-guessing myself. If I finish work, I'll go and meet my trusted friend. Did I do very well? Because nothing is too good. Nothing will be enough for a narcissist. Nothing you do, you can never satisfy them. So you need to start second-guessing myself, start showing my colleague, did I do very well? You can just throw it at you and you did rubbish. Do you understand? So that is imposter syndrome. And one thing about imposter syndrome, it doesn't make you become your authentic self, who God created you to be. It doesn't make you do your best self in that office. So imposter syndrome is a feeling of not being enough, not being adequate, not being competent enough. Next slide. Then we have this vindictive narcissist. They are very cunning. Don't challenge them. They will get back at you. When you discuss any personal things with them, the day you challenge them in the office, every other people will know in the office. So you need to be very careful. And they are very hard to spot. You can't spot a vindictive narcissist. They are the one in a marriage, they are the one that will set their children against their spouse. Yes. They are the one that always say, your daddy did this, your daddy did, always to poison the children's minds against that. They are very vindictive in nature. They don't have this grandiose attitude, they don't have this arrogance, but very cunning. So you need to be mindful of who a vindictive narcissist in the office. Next slide, please. So a vindictive narcissist also make people to point fingers at you. It will start spreading rumors about you. So people will start pointing fingers at you that, oh, she was the one that did this, she was the one that did this. And they are the one that will go to the boss to seek sympathy so that you can get queried or fired eventually if care is not taken. Next slide, please. So how does toxic people, how do they show up in the workplace? Maybe when you know that there is no work-life balance in your office space. There is no work-life balance. There is frequent arguments and aggression in the office. There is excess gossip. There is quest for power. The office is so competitive. There is double standard. It's a toxic place. A place where there is double standard. Some employees are overpaid and some are the organs, but the spy ones are the ones that get overpaid. And the other ones are all normal staff. And maybe you work over more than the normal requirement of time you are supposed to work. When there is no work-life balance, when there is dishonesty in the office, there is so much of gossip and all that, those are the places you can have the sign that this place is toxic. And when you start telling your own personal mental health or physical health, then the place is toxic enough for you. The next slide. So this signs that the toxic sometimes when you are working in a toxic environment, some people are so strong that it doesn't get to them. When it's work, they finish work, they get home, they act as if nothing happened. So I'm going to distribute a questionnaire now because this thing is personal to each and every one of us. So what are the signs that this toxic workplace is actually affecting you? We are not submitting it. You get your score, then from there we know how to go from there. So this is a questionnaire. Thank you. Give me one, please. Give me one. Thank you. So we'll circle the number as best as possible we can. Then we can now add the number together. When your score is above 35 and above, that means it's actually affecting your mental health. And there's something you need to do about it because it's very paramount to check on your mental health. So just circle how you feel. First one, you feel like you are being manipulated into something you don't want to do. Is it your strong yes or often, sometimes not often or no? You circle the number that's best possible. Your workplace puts you in a negative mood of anxiety. I remember that imposter syndrome. I woke up in the morning, I'm having the anxiety, what's going to happen at work today? And one of the things that my malignant boss does is, I must not close the normal 6 o'clock. So what I do, I have a very good subordinate that will take my bag to my car. I'll give him key. He will put my bag in a nylon. He will now take it to my car. Because when he see you using your bag, he will see you because it's an open office and it has a secluded glass place. So he will take my bag to my office and wait 10 minutes later, he'll drop my key. I will just walk as if I'm going to delete it. I've gone up. But at the back of my mind, when in the morning I know that I'm going to face this man, he will lash out at me. Where did you go yesterday and all that? Because sometimes he will tell me not to close 6. That 6 is in the paper, that I need to go home 8. He doesn't want to know that I just gave birth to heaven in that time. It was so tough. He does, yes. After even man, they say you have used your maternity, go and get a nanny, go and drop. Even if you have a nanny, want to go home and take care of your child. So those are the ones that want you to close by 9, close by 10. I had to sneak out and so let's start filling the form. So your workplace puts you in negative mood of anxiety, depression, anger, helplessness, powerlessness, low morale. You circle what is best describe you. You are constantly being gaslighted, like I said, denying your reality. They can deny you. You feel bad about yourself at work. You circle what's being put down. They're always insulting you, making jokes about something you are very sensitive about. So just to get the rise of you, to get you angry. You are always confused by a colleague, employee, subordinate, or boss behavior. You have unhealthy or poor work-life balance. You transfer aggression. Maybe after work, you get home, you start lashing out on your spouse or on your children over little things. You feel like you deserve an apology that never comes. They don't apologize to you. You walk on eggshell. You are very hypervigilant. You don't know who to trust. You always say, oh, what's going to happen today? So you circle what best describe you. Avoidance. When you're in a meeting, you can't speak up during meetings. You're having this imposter syndrome like me. You don't know whether they would, you feel that you are not competent enough to talk in that meeting. You are experiencing a fair amount of paranoia, or don't trust anybody in the office. No one to talk to. You can't even trust anybody. You don't know when you say something is going to get to the boss. You always have to defend yourself. Every time you always have to defend yourself. You don't feel comfortable around people at work because they are unsupportive. Always stress out at work. I will define that this last two, this stress at work. One thing about stress is the more you get stressed at work, you know, our brain has this sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is the one that when we stress out, it gives us this freeze and fight response. But the parasympathetic is the one that will cause the hypothalamus to release the cortisol to help us with the stress. So the more you are stressed out, the more cortisol is being released. The more you are stressed out, the more cortisol is being released. The implication is that your brain is shrinking. And what causes the brain shrinking is you start forgetting things easily. So when your brain shrinks and you start forgetting things easily, you know what is causing, leading to memory loss. You are experiencing the imposter syndrome like I've described. So let's total our number. When you are above 35 and above, please go to therapy for proper assessment and intervention quickly. So let's fill out the form, please. So because how the toxic workplace is affecting us is personal, so we need to do it. So let's continue, please, because of our time. So this is imposter syndrome as well. This is how it's affecting us. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about how to work well with a toxic boss, colleague, or employee. I put a man praying there. No, leave it there. A man praying. I remember this scripture I used to use. Because one thing is that if you surround yourself with toxic people, you start having this imposter syndrome, being paranoid, you having distrust, you don't trust anybody in the office. This scripture, 2 Timothy 1:7, kept me going. It said, God has not given me the spirit of fear, because I start developing anxiety. I want to go to work. I start having fear. But of love, I need that love. I started disliking people around me. Even my boss, I don't like everything about me. My colleague that is a narcissist, I don't like. My subordinate, I start having this dislike kind of feeling. But I need love. As a Christian, we need love? We need to show love. So I need that power of love, for God to give me that power of love, to force myself to love these people, irrespective of what they are doing to me. I need the power. I need the spirit of power, which is the strength to go on and continue to work in that toxic environment. I need sound mind. That 2 Timothy 1:7 was my scripture daily. I need the power of love, the spirit of love, the spirit of power, and of sound mind, mentally and emotionally sound. Those are the things that kept me going till I eventually left the place. The another thing to help you work well with a toxic person is to know the learning style, representational system of that your boss or your employee. What we know probably is a visual person. That's what will make you create a very good rapport. If I know that you are my boss and you are a visual person and you're talking to me, say, oh, I see what you're saying, sir. That give you connection, a good rapport connection. What learning style representational system does is it have a good connection, a good rapport between you and such person. Oh, I see what you're saying, sir. Or maybe your boss is a kinesthetic and say, I feel where you are coming from. I feel it. Then if it's an auditory person, oh, I hear you, sir. When you're saying that, you are saying what they like to do. An auditory digital person, they need to comprehend, they need to make sense. Oh, I understand you, sir. So those are the key words. You need to understand their representational system, and you're communicating in that manner. It gives you that ways of good rapport.
Sorry, ma. That point is, I think, very, very important. So
all right, sir.
Could you just recap it again?
So when you discover the learning style, the representational system of that your boss or colleague or employee, you need to respond in the same manner. If your boss is a visual person and is discussing something with you, you tell them, I see what you're saying, sir. Don't just say, I hear you, because you know that he likes pictorial form. He likes to describe things in picture. I see what you're saying, sir. Then an auditory person, you will tell the auditory boss, I hear you, sir. Then the auditory digital, the one that like to make sense of things, I understand you, sir. Then the kinesthetic one is that like to feel. Say, oh, I feel where you're coming from, sir. So when you start working with that boss representational system, it gives you a kind of a good rapport. You have a good rapport with that boss. Then another thing to work well with a toxic boss employee or colleagues is to have an adaptation strategy. Because of their gaslighting nature, you have to timestamp and document every conversation. If you tell me to do something, please send me a mail to that effect or send a message to them. If you are denying me in future, I will show them this is the proof. So I won't take your word for you again. Next time, I will have to timestamp and document every conversation. Another thing is you can use reverse psychology, especially when you have an employee or a subordinate that is always, they don't like to be controlled. They are the one that want to control everything. Use a reverse psychology, because the reverse psychology is like doing something, saying the opposite of what you want them to do. If I tell you to do something and I know that you don't like being controlled, I say, I send you a mail to do it. I know you are not going to do it. I know already you are not going to do it. But eventually I want them to do it. But you saying that, him hearing that he's not going to do, you want to do it because he doesn't like to be told that this is what I need to do. So just say the reverse of the things you want them to do. I know you are not going to work on that mail. Just say that it's a reverse psychology, but you need to be very careful in using reverse psychology. Sometimes they can catch you up to that. Yeah. So another way you can work with a toxic person is to manage your expectation. Nothing is never going to satisfy them. Nothing is never going to be enough for that person. So manage your expectations, set realistic expectation for yourself. Another thing is, especially when you are the employer of labor, ask for that person's dream. Talk about the person's dream and see how you can help that person, because it's coming from a toxic background. So see how you can help that person. Another way you can do is to show empathy. Treat them well. Treat them well and see what you can do about it. Another thing is start creating your exit strategy. Don't leave yet. Start making plans for your exit strategy. Ways, like I said, that's why I give us the card. Why are you grateful for? What are you grateful for in your office? So when you look at what you're benefiting, what you're grateful for, and ways how the mental health is affecting you, you weigh the pros and cons and see how, if you are, maybe you eventually want to quit, start making plans for exit strategy. Don't just leave. Make an exit strategy plan. So that's how one of the tips of ways to work well with a toxic boss or employee. Next slide, please. So how do you know that you are having a mentally healthy workplace? Number one, when you are a boss or an employer of labor, notice your staff. Notice people. How are you feeling today, Mr. Solomon? Don't say, how are you doing? Good morning. No. Call and say, how are you feeling today? And when they are leaving home, how did you feel at work today? You need to notice your staff. You need to know how to work with them and empathize with them. And also make available mental health services for your staff. It is high time we start making, it's not only physical HMO, physical medical checkup. Mental health checkup is very necessary. Yes, it's very, make available, empathize with your staff. Treat them well. Treat them well, check up on them, and see how you can, that's how to create a mentally healthy workplace. Next slide, please. Then ensure that they see therapists. If you notice them that they are not feeling well, or maybe they're a bit depressed, encourage them to visit a therapist. Or if you have that services implying, invite a therapist or a psychologist to talk with that staff to help her go through everything it's going to help her unleash everything and see how she can get healed and helped. Thank you so much. So I'm ending like saying that, next slide please, that toxic people are made, they are not born. There is no genetic, in fact, when research says it's only the genetics is a part of it, is just 5%, but they are made, you've mirrored to them. So teach your child core empathy. It is very, no matter what you're teaching your children, teach them how to empathize, teach them core empathy, mutuality. Yes. Teach them emotional, social, spiritual intelligence and compassion. Build a secure sense of attachment in them to enable them develop their true sense of self. Raise a wholesome child. I will always end with raising a wholesome child, because a toxic people, they are actually made. They are not born. Thank you so much.
Wow. Wow. Uh, I know why I said after the session you should go and get this video on YouTube again, because most of the things that have been said here, I am very sure for a good number of people, you are hearing these things for the first time. You're hearing these things for the first time, and it would seem as if she's talking over our heads. But if you go back and look at these things, they are the normal things that happen to you every day, but you don't know this is what is happening to you. So it's important that you let's begin to pay attention to these things. There are a few questions that had been, sent ahead, but some of those questions, the presentation has taken care, of some of those questions. What should you quit a job that is taking a toll on your health? You've talked about that. But here's a particular concern that I have, and it's one of the questions that has been asked. In my office, I deal with a couple of interns. I manage the interns in my office, and it appears like there's the new generation that's coming about a bit more aware about these things. And I was joking with my colleague that very soon they may have to begin to change labor laws to accommodate for some of the, I don't want to call it antics, but the things that this new generation of workers are going to inflict on the workforce. I say inflict with a sense of responsibility. So what do we do about people who are going to or are already trying to take advantage of this new awareness of mental health issues, whether as a subordinate doesn't want to work and wants to cite mental health as the basis for their laziness, or is a superior who is manipulative and then wants to say, oh, it's not my fault, it's based on how I grew up and all whatnot. How do we deal with those kinds of issues?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. If you want to deal with somebody that is using mental health as an excuse, is sometimes we call malingering. They want to pretend as if they are having this kind of illness or mental health issues just to maybe get a relief from work or stay off work. If you want to notice that they are lying, what you can do is give them notice. If somebody is coming up with depression and I say, oh, you can stay off work, you need to notice. One of the things as a boss or as an employer or as a subordinate, as a superior, is to always notice people's body language. Immediately I tell you, okay, you can take 2 days off, and I easily see excitement in your face, you are lying. I easily see that a depressed person will still feel a bit of. But immediately you smile and start feeling excited, that means it's like, it's not a mental, we call it malingering in psychology. So they lie to pretend. But the other one is a factitious disorder, because sometimes some people want attention. The issue is not the depression they are telling you they are having, but because they are seeking attention, but it's still a cry for help. There is still a mental health issue somewhere, but it might not be depression. So it's still a cry for help. So one of the things you can do is to help them seek for mental health services. But for the malingering one, try and detect their facial expression and know that they are lying, and seek for mental health services for the ones that are actually crying for help.
So sometimes it's actually a cry for help.
It's actually a cry for help. Okay. Yeah.
We have one other question, and then we'll entertain one question or two from the congregation. I have this experience at work as well. You have a brilliant staff. He's good at what he's doing, but he's toxic. How do you deal with that, considering the fact? So, for instance, if I'm an employer of labor, I have this guy who the only thing I need to do is say, and he gets the job done, but he's terrible with his colleagues and all whatnot. How do we manage that kind of person?
So thank you so much. If it's toxic with the colleagues, have you seen how well it's affecting them? You need to run an assessment with those colleagues. But sometimes you can be working with a toxic person and it's not affecting you in any way, and he's getting your job done, it's good. But if it's not affecting the other people's colleagues, you need to work well with the colleagues and give them some tips. That's why I give us some there's still a lot of tips you can help them with how to cope well with a toxic person. Because one thing is about some people have skills and talent and they are toxic. And if we start doing this mental health checkup before I get employed, 1 out of 4, recent statistics show that 1 out of 4 people have mental health issues. 1 out of 4 people have mental health issues. So you need to and you can't start using that to employ people, or else nobody will start working. Everybody will start feeling depressed. So what you need to do is how to see other colleagues, get how well the toxic personality is affecting them, and let them seek help. One thing about you can't change a narcissist. You can't change them. You can only help them manage their behavior. So if you can seek help for that person, the toxic person too, there's a way he can manage his behavior. Like they say, never say never also. There's nothing God cannot do, so you can pray for them as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was already conversing with a Friends Connect champion, and he's saying maybe we should bring you back because the thing is loaded. We've gone quite far, and we've not even touched what we need to touch. Your last statement, let me start from there. You can't change a narcissist. I'm afraid, though, and I'll tell you why. Because it's two-sided. There are narcissists at work. There are narcissists at home. Yeah. The impact of narcissists at home can affect the worker. Then if you have 2 narcissists at home and at work, the person is already finished. So I don't know how, maybe church will handle, it's not for Friends Connect. When I do Marital Bliss Academy, how to spot a narcissist before I even say I do. That's not separate. That's not my problem.
Gaslighting is the first thing to spot.
Dr. Buki, this is not Marital Bliss Academy.
Okay, I'm just giving them one. Okay.
Mine is in terms of employing people. At the point of employment, everybody brings their best behavior forward. Everybody wants to work. What can you do? I can do all things. I can work under pressure. You know? And really, what you've brought to the fore is, as Christians, we've depended so much on the Holy Spirit. And He's helping us. If not for the Holy Spirit, we'll hire some wrong people. But what you are saying is, depend on the Holy Spirit. But He has also given us the opportunity, the power to seek knowledge. So we don't have to pour all our weighting on Him. So this young man comes in. I'm on the panel trying to recruit for an agency. And then he says something, he leaves. The second person comes in, says something. And I ask, did you come with the other person? He pauses and he says yes. How did I know? They are both wearing the same type of suit, different color, but same cut. That if I were not that observant, and it happened that both of them are tailors, there was no job, so they decided to come and work for somebody. When the job comes up, when work starts flowing again, they will abandon the person's work and go back to. I'm just saying things like that. Or something like you look at someone's wristband, he's wearing a Redeemed Church wristband. So he starts to. So you're making case for people who will just sit back and just observe the people. So I'm saying, if you don't have a psychologist, a professional psychologist, what do you do? Particularly for small business owners. You want to hire somebody. The person has packaged himself and he wants to deceive you to that line. What do you do?
Thank you so much, sir. One thing for a small business owner is when you are employing, when you want to conduct an interview, just seek out for a psychologist to sit with you. If you really want to get it right, if you really want to employ the right person, just seek out a psychologist to sit with you. We can observe body language and behavioral, the facial expression, the changing of hand, the way they cross their leg. If you can't do that, I think 80% of your issue is solved. And the other one is from you, the talent, the skills you are looking for. You do that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ma.
Thank you.
This topic it really touched me because I've just been transferred, and my present branch, the environment emits toxin, like from the people you work with to the customers. Oh, Jesus. Bushy, to be precise. So my own question is, of course, for bosses, we just have a way of working around them. Pata pata, you answer query. I'm sorry. But how do you deal with working with customers day in, day out that are so toxic? 1 minute your day is perfect, and then somebody just ruins it. So just how do you deal with insult? And it's every day. It's every day. Market. It's really, really crazy. It's crazy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So one of the things you can do, like I said, I gave us some tips on how to work well with a toxic person. Number one thing is don't take it too personal. It is not about you, my sister. It is about them. Don't take things too personal and manage your expectation. And if it's telling on your mental health, you can always be working with a therapist as long as you're still working in your environment. Always see a therapist to talk to see. We will be giving you so many tips and strategies on how to handle your customer. That's why therapy is not for only the intervention. Be proactive about it. You need to make it a proactive measure to see therapists. It is not only when things happen or when toxic things happen to you. You can get the tips and strategies to work well with the environment. It doesn't have to happen when things happen. So seek out therapy early enough. And as you're working with your customers and your toxic environment, be seeing a therapist by the side to help you balance your mental well-being.
Praise the Lord.
Thank you. Then don't take things too personal. It's very important, man.
Praise the Lord. Thank you so much, ma. God bless you. So I want to start by pleading with Friends Connect team that we should have a part 2. I say that because I think that this teaching is totally incomplete if employers and employees here cannot ask practical questions on their daily lives and it's been answered. So I don't know, maybe the next one would not have. Now we've gotten the information. The next one can now be interactive throughout. So so that's what I think. That's my suggestion, please. And then I want to ask, from my place of an employer who get to meet very many people. When he was talking, I was just laughing because I have employed all sorts. So when I mean all sorts, it's not like they are wrong, but I'm getting to a point where I'm beginning to think that there's almost nobody in Nigeria who doesn't have a mental health issue. It may be at different levels, but I think there's almost nobody anymore. And so I'm not saying that they are wrong employees, but I'm saying they come with their issues. Yesterday, I was working with about 13 of them at a time. Many of them married. As a matter of fact, we were at work when one of them, the wife had the baby yesterday and he had to rush off. So at that point, I realized that's why this guy has been behaving like this since morning. So his wife was even in labor, but because we were under so much pressure, he didn't even say it, because he knew if he said it, I would say go. But we couldn't have worked without him, maybe so he thought. And I'm asking because you are faced with all of these people. Like someone looked at me yesterday and said, how do you even cope? So sometimes I actually go on YouTube, watch videos to learn how to manage this person, that's so that we can work. So how do you manage people at this time where things are getting really tough in Nigeria and everybody have very many issues, especially if you are interested in them? So I asked this question because there was a point where you were talking about finding out from them, spending time and encouraging. So you've done that over the years. You have employees who can talk to you and tell you what's happening with them. And then you have employees who are seeking attention. You too, you need attention. You too, you have your own personal challenges and pressure. As a matter of fact, 2 days ago, I was like, see, as you have your own, me to have my own. You can always want to disturb my own. I'm not going to ask you what is wrong with you. If when you are tired, you come out of your mood. But after a while, yesterday, I still had to address it. So I'm saying, what if it gets overwhelming for an employer? What do you do, especially in a season like this? That's on one side. And on the other side also, how do you help someone, now not even for an employee, probably someone above you, so to speak? Because again, talking about somebody who is toxic and the person can seek help, but what the person doesn't even know that the person needs to seek help. So how do you manage such a, whether family member, colleague, or somebody, but probably somebody who is a bit above you that you may probably not be able to, talk to about it? How do you manage that if the person is toxic? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, ma. So for your first question, ma, one thing is about don't overburden yourself. That's why I say seek out mental health services for your staff. Notice when you notice them, and how are you feeling today? Or when they are going home, how did you feel at work today? And you've noticed them. Don't be the one to, because you have your work to do, and because maybe they put the burden and they eventually probably need to solution and all. So seek out mental health service. Encourage them to seek out therapists, or force them to see a therapist. If you have a good one, that can help them out, just put that burden on the therapist. Let him or her work with the therapist. Don't put everything on you, because you too, you need to check on your own mental well-being as well, so that it doesn't get overwhelming to you. And for the toxic or a superior person or family member, And one thing about narcissists will deny that they don't have problems or toxic people. They will always tell that they are not toxic. They will tell you you are the one that have the issues. So one thing you can do is, I have one that recently they are forcing the man to see a therapist. Right now he doesn't want to see. And one thing about it is, if you don't seek mental health services, things can go wrong at the end of the day. When you stay in such marriage, it's affecting your own mental well. You start feeling depression and all that. Remember what happened to a Nigerian singer. He's a malignant man. They like to be in control of their victim, so that the people will not seek out help. So one thing you can do is to see a way to see somebody that person is answerable to. That person could have a mentor or somebody that is answerable to. Then from there, that person will help him see a psychologist or a therapist. There is no how. You need to help them seek for mental health services. Don't put all the burdens on yourself. Thank you so much, ma.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma. All right. So the sister that talked about being transferred the other side, I can quite relate with what she said. I was going to ask a question along that line. When you have toxic people around, is there a possibility of having a toxic environment where people who were not originally toxic get in there and become toxic? For instance, what she's trying to narrate can actually make her become what she wasn't originally. So is there a possibility of a toxic environment, and is there anything that can do about that, especially in relation with children who are relatively innocent to this whole thing, and then they grow up in this kind of environment and they want to behave like that?
Something we call mirror neurons in our brain, in our frontal lobe. Every time I get in contact with you, you are mirroring your behavior to me. So eventually I'll start acting it out, especially the innocent children. So for that lady that is always experiencing toxic environment, if care is not taken, she becomes who she doesn't want to be. So that's why you seek out mental health help early enough, or you exit the toxic environment. Plan your exit strategy enough well, so that you know that when you're out, you can able to cope within yourself. Sometimes you can take a break. You might not exit immediately. Just take maybe 3-month break to find yourself, see the doctor, see the therapist, see how well you can work, and weigh the pros and cons. Can I go back to this environment, or can I stay? So sometimes it's good to take a break and refresh yourself. Okay, what's next for me? What do I need to? And especially if the job that is paying you well, and see how you can work with a therapist. There is no how. You can't rule out mental health services from your life. You need to be able to cope well in that toxic environment without being a toxic person. Yeah.
All right, ma'am. My question is so that we can get a balance, because at some point it sounded like you spoke a lot for, like in favor of the employers. But I want to look at this thing from an employee perspective, because when you talked about, when Brother Emmanuel asked this question, and then you talked about engaging the services of a psychologist on your panel when you're interviewing. But I know people who have walked into toxic environments unknowingly, in a bid to earn a living. So then he gets in there and he's stuck in between. Of course, he's left maybe from another job, and now he's stuck. He needs the money to keep body and soul together, but the environment is so toxic. Now, I want you to share an insight into how I can tell from a first engagement with an employer, prospective employer, that this environment may be, because I can't carry a psychologist along with me to help me check and tell me whether this is, what are the things that I can check, that I should look out for, that will tell me that in this place you're going to, better keep that 20,000 naira and continue with it, because this one that will give you 100,000 naira perhaps will kill you.
Okay, what is it you can tell to notice the environment, whether it's toxic?
Yes.
Okay, ask from people around. Ask the employees there already to make inquiry about the workplace. If you want to go and work, if I get you right, if you go and work with, let's say, Bukola and Associates now.
Absolutely.
Ask for one of Bukola and Associates, 1 or 2 employees around the office, and say, how is this office like? Just ask, or make a friend, make inquiry. It's like you want to go to a school, you want to go to Awesome College, you ask me, how is Awesome College? I give you 1 or 2
That's
tips.
what you told me.
Even though when you eventually get there, you saw some things yourself. So you can eventually see things. But one of the things you can do is ask questions around and see how you can help that person not to enter the toxic environment. Or if the person really needs that money, then how to cope well in that toxic environment. There is no how. Some people have toxic, and there is a toxic environment, but some people work well under that toxic condition. As long as you don't take things too personal and maybe you are doing self-care. It's something we call self-care. Even if you can't afford a therapist, do some self-care, do some breathing meditation yourself, do some reparenting yourself, parenting yourself as well. Whatever you've learned from then on, learn then and relearn good things. There's a way you can cope on your own, even without seeing a therapist or a psychologist. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Just to round up, so you talked about seeing a therapist, and that's really key. I have come across, some of these digital apps. How well would you recommend any of those? Because, for instance, I may or may not. I don't know if there's a directory for clinical psychologists in Nigeria. I know that they say black people don't see shrinks. That is something that we're still trying to correct. But I know that digital technology has come to sort of aid the delivery of some services, and I think that psychology services are one of them. To what extent do you recommend them? Because I'm not saying that, I don't think that that's the only place that you should be on, but how would you recommend them for instance, busy professionals who may not exactly have the time to, go sit in a session like that? So I think digital services can help them, but how would you recommend those?
If you want to see a therapist, yes. What I do a lot of teletherapy. I hardly sit one-on-one with people, and teletherapy is because of the internet and social media, so it's very easy for us to see. So I recommend just know the profile of that person. Know that, because it's not all of them that are professionals. Some, though I went for some certification, some are just counselors, and they will start advising you, and so leave that job, leave your husband, do this, do that. But you need to do some research on a particular person. I, for one, I don't recommend people unless I get to know you as a psychologist and get to know what you've done. Okay, if you tell me that you're a psychologist, okay, who have we worked with? Then I get to see who you've worked with. Then from there, I will discuss, did you work with this person? And how far was it? Was it able to help you from them? Just you make an inquiry around and see where you can see a very good psychologist. And you don't have to limit yourself in Nigeria. You can have your psychologist abroad. Teletherapy works. If you can afford it, yes. If you can.
Thank you very, very much.